Welcome to Inside the Music. We are pleased to have with us Jeff Siegel and Rich Syracuse. These two incredibly talented musicians performed with pianist Lee Shaw for many years until her death in 2015, and they have a wealth of stories to share about their time with the Capital Region's First Lady of Jazz. Born in Oklahoma in 1926, Lee learned the now iconic American songbook tunes when they were new. She studied classical piano at the Oklahoma College for Women and earned her master's degree at the American Conservatory of Music in Chicago. In 1962, she married drummer Stan Shaw. They formed a piano trio and lived in Puerto Rico before moving to New York City. In New York, Shaw played with many jazz luminaries. In fact, Lionel Hampton was one of the many band leaders who would ask her to join their groups, but she always turned them down, preferring to focus on her trio with Stan. After Stan's death in 2001, she began performing in a trio with Rich Syracuse and Jeff Siegel. They had a singular devotion to Shaw, and it is partly through their efforts that her acclaim grew. Shaw had more energy, passion, and intellectual curiosity than many people a fraction of her age, and she continued to perform until a few weeks prior to her death at age 89. In addition to her brilliance as a performer, Lee Shaw was a gifted composer and a dedicated teacher. She has an impressive discography and was inducted into her college's Hall of Fame, received an honorary doctorate, and was hailed by National Public Radio along with Mary Lou Williams and Marion McPartland as one of the premier jazz pianists.
Hi, I'm Rich Syracuse. I played bass for the great Dr. Lee Shaw for almost 24 years.
Wow. And my name is Jeff Siegel, and I joined Lee Shaw in 2001 and played for 14 years as her drummer. And we're just thrilled to be here to remember our dear friend Lee Shaw and what it was like to be her rhythm section of bass and drums. And we'd just like to give thanks to Capital District Jazz for having us, Mark Kleinhut and Bill Schilling and Erica Aberg. So thank you guys so much, and the wonderful jazz audience of Albany. Take it away, Rich. You got it.
So Jeff and I played for Lee Shaw. We were her rhythm section, but we also played with her. And what do I mean by that? When I first met Lee in 1992, Lee had a pretty set thing she did. She had a book. It was written out arrangements, and when you played her show, turn to this page, you read the arrangement down, you soloed, you played the arrangement out. I was coming from a different tradition in New York. I was coming from a more in the moment jazz, piano trio, guitar trio setting, and there was some clash that went on. She actually would fire me every week, but then call me back and hire me for the next weekend. Seriously. But one thing about Lee is that she wanted to change. She heard what I was trying to do with her. And it wasn't that I was trying to do it with her, it was just what I was used to doing, two totally different generations. And we played a lot of duo gigs, and things started to open up. Then we did a trio with the great guitarist Mike D'Amico. Now, Mike D'Amico and Lee would get together and rehearse to make sure that they had who played the melody where and who was comping and what chord inversion. So we kind of got a little more back into that arranged setting. Then Mike left the group, and I suggested Jeff Siegel join us. Now, Jeff and I were used to playing in a more modern style. We played together quite a bit up to that point, but we were also of a younger generation, if you don't mind me saying, and we were coming out of the New York tradition, and it was a lot different. And the truth of the matter was, Lee really was inspired by this change, right, Jeff?
Yes, she was. I mean, what I could tell, I mean, she would say it verbally, and but she was. I had heard about Lee Shaw, but her playing was new to me. I mean, I wasn't really familiar with how she played until I played with her. But of course, I heard the great jazz piano tradition and what she was doing?
We were able to play her familiar songs, and we had arrangements that she was used to doing, and it became more in the moment. And then things started to become telepathic. I mean, we didn't even have to talk about how we were going to play a song. And what that led to was a very intuitive experience on the bandstand, where that telepathy and the intuition became compositional. So yes, we might have played some of the same standards year after year after year, and we played a lot of gigs.
Mm-hmm.
But the arrangements would change, and who soloed when, and then different things would happen during the solo. Maybe something that we did we really liked, and we would do it for a couple of weeks, but then it would always change, and then we might revisit it a few years later. Um, to people that came to see Lee, she loved everybody. So the experience there in her presence was this lovable experience, and people loved to hear her play the standards. And Jeff reminded me, my father got a chance to see Lee before he passed away, and my father was an old jazz fan from New York, and he always, anytime he would come to see me play, he always wanted to hear take the A train, I think is what it was, right, Jeff?
Actually, Satin Doll.
Or Satin Doll,
Yeah,
Satin Doll.
Satin Doll.
One of those Ellington things. And we played it, and we just like stretched out on it, right, Siege?
Yeah, I don't think we had ever played it together before, and all of a sudden, I wish I had a recording of it, because it sounded like an arrangement that we had worked out, and all these things happened, like Rich said, telepathically almost, and it was just another memorable night with playing with Lee Shaw. You never knew what was going to happen and where the music was going to go, and really, it's been about 5.5 years or so since Lee passed. Before Rich and I logged on here, I was listening to some Lee Shaw music, and the things that jumped out at me from that time together playing with Lee was our deep friendship that developed, in this great communication we had between the three of ours, honed by like tons of gigs together, traveling in Europe together, and a lot of time on the phone, playing music together, having meals. And Lee was just a very curious person, and a person who wanted to keep learning. And she demonstrated that every time she even met with her fans, and she would not talk about herself. She always wanted to find out about the other person. She had this intense curiosity, and wanted to learn about life, about other people. And her house was filled with books on gardening and all kinds of things that she was interested in. And when she was playing music, she wanted to learn, and so she wanted to be pushed, and we pushed her, right, Rich?
Yeah, we did.
And supported her too. Of course, it was a mix.
We played for her as her bass and drums, but we played with her. And it's funny, Stan Shaw was Lee's husband, and he was complaining he couldn't get a decent bagel anywhere upstate New York. So Lee figured out and learned how to make bagels. So that was the way she was. So when Jeff and I came at her with some different stuff, man, she made the bagels. I mean, she just was into it. It excited her. There was something extremely spontaneous about playing with Lee, but it was very familiar because we played originals of hers, we played standards, and we played a lot. So, then she would maybe bring in a Bill Evans tune, or something that she heard on Jazz After Hours, which she used to record, get up every 90 minutes and flip the tape over, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it's a national public radio jazz show that she would listen to in the middle of the night, and transcribe, write out the songs that she heard that she wanted to do. She'd record them and then write them out at the piano. Yeah, she was something else. So it was a tremendous experience for us. Of course, Rich and I were always learning and growing, and there's just, a band experience can really be very much like a team. It's like a team sport. And Lee was very generous, sharing the space with us. It wasn't just like piano solo melody, a piano solo, and then we take the song out. She shared the space with a lot of drum solos, a lot of bass solos. She wanted that interactiveness, and it was just really quite a joy. I wonder if she hired me because when I got out of school, I was a bagel maker myself. So maybe that was really why she hired me.
Yeah, right. You guys had that bagel making bond.
Couldn't help thinking that.
I dig that. Well, you know, I'll kind of leave you with this thought. My father, who saw me play with a lot of great musicians, especially from the time I was a young boy, after he saw us play with Lee, he said to me, he goes, "How lucky are you? How lucky are you both?" And he meant it. This is a man who, um, 21 years old, found himself in the middle of Europe, smoldering Europe in World War II. He had a very interesting perspective on life, and he saw that. And I think people that came to see Lee saw how lucky they were to kind of hear her play and be in that energy.
Mm.
And I repeat, we played for her, but we played with her, and I think that's a really a great way to kind of describe it. And
Hmm.
yeah,
And it was a shared experience with us, with our particular chemistry and communication, and then wanting to share that and feeling the energy of the audience, which we had a wonderful audience. Both people that would come to hear us all the time, as well as drawing in new people, and we all really thrived on that interaction with the audience, and really miss those times.
yeah, big time. And I had no idea that there was such a great jazz audience in Albany. Coming out of New York, I didn't know anything about Albany at all.
Hmm.
And there was Lee Shaw, there was Hal Miller and J.R. Montrose, and there was Nick Brignola, and some of the other great musicians that are up there. That generation. Um, and now the next generation, and the next generation after that, each generation that keeps coming through, or just right. It's a very fertile scene in Albany. So
It
we're
is.
happy to have a chance to share our story about Lee Shaw with you. Thank you
And
very much.
thanks again, everybody. Hope to see you out there in the club sometime soon.